22 John Harper built a pool in his backyard following all the rules. But when Karen Miller, the HOA president, demanded its demolition, she didn't hide her arrogance. She threatened fines and legal action. However, John wasn't ready to back down. He had evidence that would shake the entire association. When the truth came to light, the consequences for Karen were shocking. But let's start from the very beginning. John Harper sat on his terrace, watching the sunset rays touch the surface of the water in his brand-new pool. It was his project, his dream brought to life in concrete and tile. He and his wife, Lena, had spent many evenings planning how they would spend time here. John envisioned his kids, Tom and Melissa, splashing in the water while he and Lena relaxed nearby, enjoying the peace and comfort, far from the hustle and worries of life. The pool was more than just a structure. It was a symbol of their family's hard work and their pursuit of a serene life without constant worries about the future. But John's joy didn't last long. Just a couple of weeks after construction was completed, he received a strange letter. His eyes scanned the lines and his heart suddenly sank. It was a notice from the Homeowners Association, HOA, stating that the pool had been built without the necessary permits and was violating several important community rules. The letter ordered the immediate demolition of the project, with daily fines accumulating for any delay. A wave of frustration washed over John. How could this be? He had followed all the guidelines and had every required permit. He couldn't believe that his peaceful haven was now under threat. Before he could even process the news, his phone rang. "Did you see this?" Lena's voice was tense. "Karen Miller is at it again. She says the pool has to be removed or we'll be fined." Karen Miller was the HOA president, and her name was well known throughout the neighborhood, not just because of her position, but because of her reputation. She was strict, uncompromising, and, according to rumors, often used her authority to punish those who didn't fit into her vision of the perfect neighborhood. "She's at it again?" John felt his hands start to shake with frustration. Just as he hung up the phone, Karen's car pulled up in front of his house. She stepped out, as always, exuding authority with a businesslike expression. "Good afternoon, John. I'm here to discuss your pool. It wasn't approved by the association, and I need to remind you about the fines and potential sanctions." Her voice was as cold as ice. "Are you out of your mind?" John couldn't hold back. "You want to tear down a pool I built with all the necessary permits, following every rule?" Karen waved him off. "Don't worry, John. I'm just doing my job. Rules are rules, and we have to enforce them. I told you before that your project was too ambitious for this neighborhood." She spoke as if she was deciding where to put a new fence on his property. John couldn't believe what he was hearing. This wasn't just pressure, it was an insult. As an honest and responsible homeowner, he had poured his time and money into this project, and now his own property was being targeted with absurd demands. He wasn't about to back down. A sense of justice burned inside him, one that couldn't be extinguished easily. "I know my rights, Karen, and I'm not giving up. I'll fight for my pool and my property. This isn't yours to decide." His voice was firm, though deep down, he still couldn't comprehend how this woman in a white suit could dictate what he could or couldn't do with his own land. "Go ahead and complain if you want, but I'll fight for what's fair," he added, locking eyes with her one last time. As Karen walked away, John took a deep breath, realizing this battle wouldn't be easy. He knew the road ahead would be long and challenging, but with each passing moment his determination grew stronger. He couldn't let this go on. John couldn't just let the situation slide. He weighed all possible options, and once his thoughts became clearer, he decided to take action. He consulted a lawyer who carefully reviewed all the documents related to the pool. It turned out that every permit had been obtained in full compliance with the law. But that wasn't enough. Karen Miller, the HOA president, wasn't going to back down. She threatened fines, lawsuits, and even filed a complaint with the local authorities, claiming that the pool violated safety regulations. Each day, John received new letters and notifications. They arrived like thunder out of a clear sky. It felt like he was living in a constant state of anxiety. Some nights, he would wake up and lie there for hours, thinking about how to deal with the situation. Karen was relentless, and the pressure kept mounting. She even showed up at John's house to discuss the issue in person. When Karen walked into his home, she carried herself as if she owned the place. Her demeanor was rigid, with an undeniable air of entitlement. "John, we've already talked about this pool being a violation, and I can't just let it slide. The HOA cannot afford to look the other way," she said, her voice cold as steel. She clearly saw herself in a position of power. "Karen, I don't understand what you want from me," John replied, trying to keep his anger in check. He felt his face flush with frustration. "I followed every rule. I have all the permits. Why do you keep demanding something you have no right to demand?" His voice trembled, but he did his best to stay composed. Karen looked at him the way one might look at a child who just didn't understand the rules. "Well, the rules are the rules, and they apply to everyone. I'm just doing my job. And if you disagree, court is always a good option," she said, her tone soft but laced with an unmistakable threat. John felt a heavy burden settle on his shoulders. This wasn't just a challenge, it was a test. He knew that if he didn't fight this, he'd be facing the destruction of something he had built with so much effort. More than that, he realized that Karen, with her unwavering confidence and manipulative tactics, was willing to bulldoze anyone in her way to achieve her goals. "I'm not afraid of court," John said, trying to mask the tension in his voice. "But I will fight for my rights, and you won't force me to back down." He felt a surge of determination with his own words. However, he also knew time was running out. He started reaching out to neighbors who had faced similar pressure from Karen. John soon realized this wasn't just an isolated case. It was a systematic approach to forcing people into silence and compliance. People pretended everything was fine because they were afraid of losing what they had. But John couldn't stay silent. "I know what it's like when your rights are violated, and you feel powerless." But John wasn't giving up. He knew that if he didn't start taking action now, his dream of a peaceful life would remain just that, a dream. He was ready to fight to the end. John knew that giving up wasn't an option, so he decided to take decisive action. He enlisted the help of Lisa, a well-known attorney specializing in HOA disputes. She quickly reviewed all the documents and confirmed that there wasn't a single violation in the pool construction project. However, the real problem was Karen Miller, the HOA president, who wasn't just against the pool. She was willing to do whatever it took to get her way. John couldn't believe how far this conflict had escalated beyond normal bureaucracy. He had already received numerous letters, threats of fines, and even peaceful settlement offers for an outrageous amount of money. But his principles wouldn't allow him to back down. "How is this even possible? I can't believe it," he muttered when Karen showed up at his house yet again with her persistent demands. He felt the tension rise as she stood there, her presence filling the room with an oppressive atmosphere. "Listen, Karen, I'm in the right and you know it. My pool is my property and I won't let you take it away," he said firmly, though rage bubbled inside him. Karen simply smirked, insisting that her decisions were not up for debate. She claimed it was all for the greater good, for the safety and beauty of the neighborhood. Deep down, John knew there was more to this than just enforcing the rules. Karen was manipulating the situation, using her position to assert control and impose her will on others. More and more, John heard from his neighbors that she often turned a blind eye to real violations to protect her friends in the HOA, while those who challenged her authority found themselves targeted. He realized that without community support and solid proof, his chances of winning would be slim. The breakthrough came after another meeting with Lisa, when John decided to start gathering evidence of Karen's misconduct. He discovered that she had been misusing HOA funds for personal expenses and manipulating documentation to maintain her grip on power. This was a game changer. Together with Lisa, they began digging into HOA financial reports and other records that could expose her corruption. One evening, after a long day at work, John sat at his desk flipping through another stack of papers when his eyes landed on a suspicious document. It was a letter from Karen demanding special payments for services that had never been rendered. His heart started pounding. He immediately handed the document over to Lisa, and they began preparing their case for court. Then the situation took an even more dramatic turn. One day, just as John was about to head to the courthouse, a neighbor rushed up to him, breathless. He revealed that Karen had been threatening several other homeowners, pressuring them to pay hefty fines. This was a clear sign that John's fight wasn't just about his pool anymore. It was about protecting the rights of the entire community. "You won't believe it, John. Karen has lost it. She's trying to control the entire neighborhood," said the neighbor, who quickly became a valuable ally. With each passing day, it became increasingly clear that standing up to Karen wasn't just about protecting his personal space, it was about seeking justice for everyone. And then the day came when John and Lisa finally took the case to court. The pressure was immense, but deep down, John felt confident. Truth couldn't be hidden forever. He couldn't allow Karen and her supporters to seize control of his home. With every step forward, his resolve grew stronger. "There's no way this person is getting away with it," John thought, and the idea fueled his determination. He knew the road ahead would be long and challenging, but now he had the evidence, and that meant victory was within reach. The day of the trial was grim and tense. John walked into the courtroom, feeling a knot of nerves tighten in his chest. He knew this was the defining moment. His entire battle could end in either victory or defeat. Karen Miller sat across the room, her gaze cold and expression resolute. She exuded confidence, but John could sense that this time things would be different. He had the evidence. As the judge announced the start of the proceedings, a heavy silence filled the courtroom. John felt every eye on him, carrying a mixture of doubt and disapproval, but he stood his ground. His attorney, Lisa, stood beside him, radiating confidence. They had prepared well, gathering documents, collecting testimonies, and now it was time to act. The first phase of the trial focused on the legitimacy of Karen's claims. Lisa wasted no time exposing Karen's manipulation of HOA financial records, showing how she had used community funds for personal expenses. The prosecutor read out falsified documents proving that Karen had been diverting HOA money for her own benefit, and this was just the tip of the iceberg.
"This is absolutely outrageous,"
Lisa exclaimed, unable to contain her frustration.
"How can someone exploit people's trust and abuse their power like this?"
Karen, as expected, tried to defend herself. She claimed that her actions were nothing more than fulfilling her duties, and that all accusations against her were merely misunderstandings. However, her words fell flat when Lisa presented printouts of Karen's emails, where she openly discussed illegal dealings with other HOA board members. It was a turning point. John sat motionless, memories of sleepless nights flashing through his mind, moments of doubt when he thought he couldn't win. But now, as the truth began to surface, he felt the weight lifting from his shoulders. Karen's composure began to crack, and her once unshakable confidence started to fade away like smoke. Then came the unexpected twist. The judge asked Karen to provide evidence that she had been acting in the best interest of the community rather than for personal gain. Instead, she repeated the same empty phrases about doing everything for the betterment of the neighborhood. But when questioned about private meetings with contractors and new development projects, she couldn't provide a clear answer. It became increasingly obvious. Her actions were all about consolidating power and personal enrichment. When the judge finally delivered the verdict, the entire courtroom held its breath. Karen was found guilty of abuse of power, document manipulation, and violating transparency laws. Not only was John's pool allowed to stay, but he was awarded compensation for legal fees and emotional distress. Moreover, the court ordered the HOA to pay fines for damages caused to the entire community, ensuring that every homeowner who had been unfairly penalized or threatened would receive restitution. Karen was stunned. At first, she tried to argue, but as the judge officially removed her from her position, she silently left the courtroom. In that moment, John felt a surge of triumph. This wasn't just a victory for his pool. It was a victory for justice. A victory for everyone who had ever faced unfair treatment and didn't know how to fight back. Returning home, John felt an immense sense of relief. He looked at his family, his children eagerly waiting to swim in the pool again. His dream of a peaceful and happy home was no longer just a dream. It had become a reality. And most importantly, he had stood his ground. In the end, John realized that justice could prevail, even when it seemed buried under layers of bureaucracy and power.